She was young, radiant, and full of dreams. Alexandra Ducsay had everything going for her: a rising career in entertainment, a loving family, and a future as dazzling as her smile. But on a quiet afternoon in May 2006, all of that vanished, found lifeless in the basement of her own home. Her brutal murder would shock an entire community and launch a 6-year hunt for the truth. As investigators peeled back the layers of Alexandra's life, they unearthed a dark web of obsession, betrayal, and a chilling plan for revenge that had been years in the making. So, who killed Alexandra Ducsay? And why did it take so long to bring them to justice? Let's dive into this haunting story from the beginning. Alexandra Ducsay, a talented and ambitious young woman, was once the pride of her family and friends. With a promising career in the entertainment industry, with her radiant appearance, intelligence, and burning passion, Alexandra appeared on many television shows and relentlessly pursued her big dream. But everything came to a sudden halt in May 2006, when she was found brutally murdered in the basement of her family's home in Milford, Connecticut. Alexandra's tragic death not only shocked the community, but also sparked a years-long investigation that revealed haunting secrets about the person who took her life. Alexandra was born on December 9, 1979 in New Haven, Connecticut, USA. Her relatives affectionately called her Sandra. She grew up along the coast, just an hour outside of New York City, in the Milford area. Her parents, John and Linda, met in 1974 in Connecticut and married just a few months later. Alexandra had 2 older brothers. Despite the age difference, they were very close. Her brothers looked after their younger sister and helped their parents. The siblings often played sports together and spent much of their time enjoying games. The family lived in a large house, and Alexandra used the basement as her bedroom. Later, she transformed it into a space that was not only a bedroom, but also a home gym, where she would invite friends over for sleepovers and socializing. Alexandra was passionate about dance and gymnastics. In high school, she dreamed of becoming an actress, a goal that matched her driven and energetic personality. She had been dancing since childhood and began participating in various competitions as a teenager, earning numerous awards. Her schedule was packed. In addition to dancing, she continued her academic studies with the goal of earning a law degree. After finishing high school, she enrolled in college, completed dance courses, and took a part-time job at a bank. While working there, she met her first love, a man named Matthew Pugh. Both were passionate about sports and shared a strong work ethic. Alexandra eventually earned a bachelor's degree in finance and became a systems analyst at the same bank where she had worked for years. She dedicated nearly a decade to her career, and during that time, she also obtained a real estate license. At the age of 23, she became an assistant teacher at a dance academy. Her career continued to thrive. Alexandra performed frequently in New York, dancing at events and even appearing in music videos. At 26, she began working with a producer from Atlanta to create demo reels for music albums. Her dreams were coming true. She secured an agent in New York who helped her land auditions, eventually earning supporting roles in a popular TV series. For Alexandra, this was a significant milestone. Although the roles were secondary, she viewed them as stepping stones to greater success. Due to the intensity of her career, she had little time for a personal life. Despite dating Matthew for several years, by January 2004, the couple decided to break up. Alexandra chose to focus entirely on her work and dance career. This personal decision coincided with a difficult period for her family. Her parents decided to separate. Her father moved back to Florida to be closer to his elderly mother. By then, Alexandra's brothers had moved out and were living with their own families, leaving her and her mother alone in the house. Even as most of the home was vacated, Alexandra continued to live in the basement, which she had customized to suit her needs. It housed training equipment and a display of her many dance awards. She lived there with her large dog, and her busy schedule did not stop her from attending acting auditions. Around this time, she began to find new opportunities in film and became involved in charity work. She collected items and toys for children from low-income families and had plans to open a free canteen for those in need. Working alongside like-minded individuals, everything changed dramatically. On May 19, 2006, Alexandra met her best friend Nicole, with whom she often worked out. They trained together at the gym from 10:15 to 11:15 a.m. After which Nicole left. Nicole had wanted to stay longer at the gym, while Alexandra planned to head home for lunch and prepare for her evening plans. Around 4 p.m., Nicole called Alexandra, but the call went straight to voicemail, something highly unusual, as Alexandra was typically very responsive due to her work, which required regular phone communication. By 4:30 p.m., there was still no reply from her. Meanwhile, Linda, Alexandra's mother, arrived home and noticed that the front door was wide open. Alexandra's favorite dog was outside in the courtyard, and her white Mitsubishi was parked in the driveway. This was unusual, as the doors were usually kept closed, and the dog never went outside without a collar and leash. The dog sat outside wagging its tail, which only added to Linda's concern. Panic began to set in as she tried to understand what was going on, and she entered the house, calling out loudly. As Linda moved through the house, her anxiety intensified. When she reached the basement stairs, she noticed large drops of a dark red liquid on the floor. Upon reaching the bottom of the stairs, she saw a larger pool of the same liquid. To her horror, she found Alexandra lying on her back, unresponsive, in a massive pool of blood. Alexandra had a severe head injury and was lying in an unnatural position beneath a table. At first, Linda thought her daughter might have fallen down the stairs and hit her head on the radiator, which was visibly stained with blood. She rushed to Alexandra to check for a pulse but found none. Barely able to compose herself, she managed to call 911. In a state of panic, she screamed into the phone, trying to describe the horrific scene before her. The dispatcher struggled to understand her at first, as her words were broken by sobs and incoherent mumbling. Eventually, it became clear that Linda's daughter was lying motionless on the basement floor and showed no signs of life. When police officers arrived, Linda met them outside. What they discovered in the basement was one of the most disturbing scenes they had ever encountered. There were clear signs of a brutal attack, and Alexandra's face had been severely injured. A piece of a knife was found embedded in her skull, with the broken handle lying nearby. It was evident that Alexandra had been attacked with such force that the kitchen knife snapped in two. Alexandra had sustained blunt force trauma to the face, and her mother noticed that one of Alexandra's trophies was missing. Investigators believe the attacker may have used the trophy to inflict those injuries. The police quickly determined that Alexandra had been murdered. Alongside the severe wounds and the apparent murder weapon, they found a shoe print in the blood. This shoe print lacked the typical tread pattern, making it unique. Additionally, small traces of blood were found in other parts of the house, including the bathroom on the toilet seat and the sink where the perpetrator had presumably attempted to wash his hands. Investigators also found signs that someone had tried to clean up the blood in certain areas of the house. This led police to suspect that the crime had a personal motive, possibly linked to the missing trophy. Given the violence of the attack, they believed the killer was likely someone known to Alexandra. Most of the furniture and belongings were undisturbed, but nearly all of her clothes had been removed from the closet, and valuables such as jewelry and money were left untouched. It appeared that the assailant was searching for something specific, leading to items being scattered across the bed and floor. Police reported that Alexandra was attacked shortly after entering the basement. She had likely been pushed down the stairs, suffering her initial injury when her head struck the radiator. She did not die immediately, as there were signs of a struggle. Detectives determined that the knife used in the murder had been brought from outside the home, as none of the household kitchen utensils were missing. Investigators examined Alexandra's mobile phone and found over 100 saved contacts, all of whom needed to be interviewed or ruled out. During the investigation, another detail emerged. A garbage bag had been removed from the trash can. This suggested that the attacker may have used the bag to dispose of crucial evidence. It is believed that he might have changed clothes and used the bag to discard blood-stained items around 5 p.m. later. Alexandra's brother and her friend Nicole arrived at the scene. Nicole was in a state of hysteria, unable to process what had happened, especially since she had seen Alexandra alive just a few hours earlier. The quiet Milford area where Alexandra lived was filled with people close to her, including her mother Linda and her friend Nicole. The local community was anxious to understand what had happened, but the police refused to provide any comments until they had clarified the circumstances of the crime. The house was cordoned off. A friend mentioned that after her workout, Alexandra had planned to get ready for a date with a new man she intended to meet at a restaurant. Nicole identified him as Jason Malone, but she didn't know any other details, making him a person of interest for the police. Detectives and Alexandra's family members canvassed the area and interviewed local residents. In Milford, a town known for its low crime rate, the incident sent shockwaves through the community. Alexandra, who had gained some recognition for her minor roles in the TV series Law and Order, had now tragically become the subject of crime reports. The seriousness of the case attracted national media attention. Police appealed to the public through the press to find potential witnesses, prompting local journalists to actively seek information. Neighbors gave conflicting accounts. One man reported seeing a red pickup truck near the house around 12:30 p.m., which he believed didn't belong to anyone in the area. Another neighbor claimed to have seen a black man walking past the victim's house around 4:00 p.m., who then got into a dark green Honda Accord. Unfortunately, none of the witnesses took photos or recorded license plate numbers. Meanwhile, detectives sought more information about Jason, who turned out to be Alexandra's new boyfriend. Although they couldn't reach him directly, his sister answered the police's calls and provided his details, allowing officers to invite him to the station for questioning. When Jason arrived, he appeared nervous but firmly denied any involvement in the murder. He confirmed that he was dating Alexandra, explaining that they met when he visited the bank with a friend. Jason, being shy, told his friend that he found Alexandra very attractive and asked him to get her phone number. His friend did so, and later that evening, Alexandra called Jason. They arranged to meet and talk, eventually planning their first date. Jason was a few years older than Alexandra. At the time they met, he was living with his mother, having recently moved out of his ex-girlfriend's home after an on-and-off relationship. He was going through a difficult time emotionally, as the relationship with his ex would often rekindle, only to fall apart again. Jason worked for an energy company, where he checked electric meters in homes throughout the city. Alexandra, for her part, was in no rush to make their relationship public. After a 6-year relationship with her ex-boyfriend, she wanted to take her time getting to know Jason before making any commitments. At the station, Jason stated that he had called Alexandra around noon. They had a calm conversation and made plans to have dinner together that evening. During the call, Alexandra suddenly asked him to hold on, saying she had just seen her ex-boyfriend outside her house. Jason then heard the sound of the door opening, followed by Alexandra asking, "What are you doing here?" But there was no response. After the door closed, she picked up the phone again and told Jason she couldn't talk at that moment. Jason suspected that she had let someone into her house and, feeling uneasy and a little jealous, waited for her to call back. 15 minutes passed, and when she still hadn't returned his call, he began to worry. Fortunately, she answered his call at 12:35. They spoke for a few more minutes, but Alexandra didn't mention who had visited her or why. Jason's account helped narrow down the time frame of Alexandra's death. According to him, during this period, he was busy working driving around the city and inspecting electrical equipment. After 3 p.m., he went to a clothing store to pick out new pants for their date. Around 4:30 p.m., he tried calling her again, but she didn't answer. Later, when he went to her house, he noticed police cars outside. The police spoke with Alexandra's family and learned that her only known ex-boyfriend was Matthew, but their relationship had ended 2 years earlier. While detectives were working on obtaining a warrant to examine mobile phones, they interviewed Alexandra's relatives. They learned that her breakup with her ex-boyfriend, Matthew, had not been smooth. Linda, Alexandra's mother, was aware that Matthew had a criminal record and had treated Alexandra poorly. Their relationship lasted until Matthew was first imprisoned in 1998. During his time in prison, Alexandra supported and visited him, but he ended up serving a long sentence. Despite Alexandra's love for him, doubts about their relationship began to grow. By January 2004, they had officially ended things, partly due to Matthew's increasingly rude and threatening behavior. Although they still communicated occasionally, his aggression continued to escalate, and there was no chance of rekindling the relationship. At the time of the investigation, Matthew was found living with his wife about 30 minutes from Alexandra's home. On the day police contacted him, he was working at a Papa John's restaurant. The initial conversation took place there on the 15th. He stated that he had 2 jobs, one at the restaurant and the other with a company that manufactured aircraft parts, located about an hour north of Milford. He claimed he had worked from 6:30 a.m. to 3:00 p.m. on the day of the murder and only left home after hearing the news of Alexandra's death. Police noticed that he appeared somewhat confused during the conversation. Matthew seemed distrustful of the police, but he admitted that he had spoken to Alexandra on the phone a few days before her death. Their last in-person meeting had been at least 4 weeks prior. After this conversation, detectives left. The following day, Matthew returned to the police station and confessed that he had lied during their previous interview. He clarified that he did arrive at work at 6:30 a.m., but at 9:15 a.m. he requested time off and left. He claimed to have spent most of the day at home and later went into town to care for a sick relative. Matthew insisted that he had not been in Milford or anywhere near the surrounding suburbs that day. He agreed to provide a DNA sample and handed over the clothes he had worn on the day of Alexandra's death. The investigation continued, and both Matthew and Jason remained the primary suspects in the murder. Forensic experts concluded that Alexandra had died from multiple stab wounds, lacerations, and blunt force trauma, primarily to her face. The attack was so savage that she had swallowed several of her own teeth after they were knocked out. Experts discovered a crucial piece of evidence. A hair found stuck to the dried blood on Alexandra's body did not belong to her. In addition, pieces of duct tape were found on her face, suggesting that her mouth had been taped shut during the attack. Investigators then looked deeper into Jason's background and found that he also had a criminal record, having served over 5 years for trafficking banned substances. He drove a car that matched the description given by a neighbor, a dark green vehicle. Another witness reported seeing a dark green car parked near Alexandra's house throughout the day. Despite this, Jason maintained his innocence, arguing that the car model he drove was very common in the city at the time. Detectives were unable to verify his alibi of being at a clothing store around 300 p.m. He had indeed visited the store, but much later in the evening, contradicting his earlier statement. It raised suspicions that he may have been trying to mislead the investigation. When police checked geolocation data from his phone calls, they discovered that although his phone had been active throughout the day, it had never registered in the Milford area. As a result, Jason was ruled out as a suspect. Attention then shifted back to Matthew. Police spoke again with Alexandra's mother to gather more information about him. She had never liked Matthew. He was 7 years older than Alexandra, had a criminal past, and, unlike Alexandra, showed no interest in personal growth or employment. Detectives contacted his employer, who confirmed that Matthew had left work much earlier than he had initially claimed. Instead of leaving at 9:15 a.m., he had actually clocked out at 8:39 a.m. Surveillance footage also placed him at a gas station at 2:10 p.m. Not at noon, as he had previously told police. The discrepancies in Matthew's statements were alarming. Although he claimed to have spent time at car dealerships until 4 p.m., the times he provided were inconsistent. Investigators began to suspect that Matthew might be the murderer. On May 26th, they obtained a search warrant for his house. Inside, everything was tidy and clean, and nothing suspicious was found except for some fine art. Investigators assumed that remnants of a roll of electrical tape could have been found on the victim's face. This alone did not indicate involvement in the murder, as many people have electrical tape in their homes. All other tests and analyses failed to link Matthew to the crime. A thorough search of his property yielded no results, leaving the investigation at a standstill. The only remaining step was to send the electrical tape for forensic analysis. This particular type of tape was rare and difficult to find. It wasn't available in regular stores or online. In 2006, only 3 local companies used it, one of which was an aircraft parts plant where Matthew worked. The tape found on Alexandra's face had the same adhesive base, possibly pointing to the real killer. The police decided to contact Matthew's relatives again and uncovered critical information. Matthew's brother revealed that he had a fierce temper and a potential motive against Alexandra. In 2002, he had given Alexandra his Nissan car and later lent her $2,000. She broke up with him in January 2004 while he was in prison and refused to return anything. This reportedly made him very angry. On June 14th, detectives re-interrogated Matthew, confronting him with the inconsistencies in his story. He managed to explain each disputed point, leaving the police with no new evidence. It wasn't until the end of the year that DNA test results became available. The tests revealed that all the blood found in the basement belonged solely to Alexandra. The blood droplets found in the bathroom were more significant. They contained DNA from Alexandra and a man. The concentration was too low to extract a complete DNA profile. Based on forensic analysis, experts concluded that the killer was a black man. The hair found in Alexandra's hand could not be identified, and none of the fingerprints collected at the crime scene matched any suspects. Additionally, the unique shoe print found at the scene could not be traced. Consequently, the investigation reached another standstill. A $50,000 reward was offered for information that could help solve the case. In 2010, authorities decided to reach out to inmates. A photo of Alexandra was distributed to correctional facilities. In September 2011, a prisoner named Paula contacted the Milford Police Department. She claimed that her former cellmate, Christopher Richards, had been in a relationship with Alexandra for 2 years prior to her death. According to Paula, their relationship took place between Alexandra's breakup with Matthew and the beginning of her relationship with Jason, a detail previously unknown to investigators. Paula claimed that when Alexandra ended things with Christopher, he was in prison. He became enraged and reportedly told his cellmate he wanted to kill her once he was released. Investigators launched an inquiry into these claims, but discovered that Paula had lied. Christopher did not know Alexandra, and there had been no communication between them, an unlikely detail for a supposed 2-year relationship. It appeared that Paula was attempting to frame her cellmate. 2 weeks later, a bus driver named Jeremy, a longtime friend of Alexandra, came forward. He reported witnessing Alexandra receive a threatening text from a man named Donovan, who demanded repayment of money she had lent him and threatened to kill her if she didn't pay. Jeremy said this occurred just 2 weeks before her death. It appeared Alexandra did not take the threat seriously. Ultimately, this claim was also proven false. 6 years later, in August 2012, detectives finally received crucial information. Anthony Pugh, Matthew's cousin, contacted the police and revealed details about the gifted car and the $2,000 that Alexandra had borrowed from Matthew, not her brother, as previously believed. His long story began back in 1993 when Matthew involved him in a criminal scheme. Both were later imprisoned for their actions. After being released in 2005 and 2006, they found jobs at the same plant, although they maintained a good relationship initially. Matthew betrayed Anthony a year later, leading to Anthony's imprisonment once again, seeking revenge. Anthony decided to expose the truth. Anthony disclosed that after Matthew's breakup with Alexandra, he became obsessed with her and even considered killing her. Matthew initially planned to inject her with a lethal dose of drugs to stage an accidental overdose. Upon learning about her new relationship, he changed his mind and opted for a more violent method of murder. Both men worked at the same aircraft factory, where Matthew stole gloves and a special type of tape to commit the crime. Police believed he wanted to leverage this information, and he later admitted it directly. Anthony was motivated by both the $50,000 reward and a desire for revenge against his brother. Upon verifying the information, investigators discovered a crucial oversight in their initial data analysis. It was revealed that Matthew had been in the Milford area at around 11:47 a.m. and left at 12:07 p.m. He later returned and stayed at the scene for over an hour. With this new evidence, police had strong grounds to arrest and charge him. On August 24, 2012, Matthew Pugh was charged with first-degree murder and home invasion. At the time, he was already serving a prison sentence for assaulting a woman in 2008. He had threatened her with a weapon, stolen her purse, and injured her arm when she resisted. The prosecutor's office later discovered that Matthew's issues began when Alexandra wrote to him in prison, ending their relationship. According to his cellmates, he became obsessed with her. In response, he wrote an 8-page letter over the course of several months. While he appeared calm after his release, starting a new relationship and having a child, he was, in fact, quietly plotting revenge. 3 years later, in February 2015, Matthew appeared in court. The prosecution argued that he had committed a premeditated and violent murder motivated by jealousy. The defense insisted that Matthew was not involved in the crime, citing the absence of direct evidence such as DNA or fingerprints. Matthew's situation worsened during his testimony. He struggled to answer the prosecution's questions convincingly, and his explanations seemed implausible. Furthermore, his own brother testified against him. Deliberation was difficult for the jury. The case was complicated, full of inconsistencies and gaps, and many viewed the accused as a pathological liar. At one point, the court had to replay Matthew's testimony for clarity. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury found him guilty of first-degree murder and trespassing. He was sentenced to 60 years in prison for murder and an additional 20 years for trespassing. The Alexandra Ducsay case remains a heartbreaking and complex story, filled with unanswered questions, from tangled relationships to doubts about who truly took her life. It is one of the most controversial and haunting cases in Milford, Connecticut. Although Matthew Pugh has been convicted, the case continues to stir public interest due to its troubling motives, complicated connections, and lingering uncertainties. The story of Alexandra Ducsay is more than just a tragic murder that shook a quiet community. It is a powerful reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk behind even the brightest smiles. Alexandra, a vibrant, talented, and ambitious young woman, was taken far too soon, her future stolen by someone who once played a significant role in her past. The investigation spanned years, marked by frustrating dead ends, unreliable witnesses, and painstaking detective work. It showed that justice may come slowly, but as long as there is persistence, hope endures. While the trial ended with a conviction for Matthew Pugh, no court ruling can erase the grief of Alexandra's family or the lingering unease left in Milford. This case revealed not only the twisted depths of obsession and vengeance, but also the dire consequences of ignoring warning signs in toxic relationships. It is a haunting example of how easily ambition and promise can be extinguished by jealousy and violence. Yet, even in tragedy, Alexandra's legacy lives on. She was more than a victim, she was a dreamer, a hard worker, and a beacon of hope to those who knew her. Her dedication to her craft, her generosity toward others, and her unwavering pursuit of a better future continue to inspire. The dreams she chased, the lives she touched, and the joy she spread remind us of the brilliance that once lit up the world. Ultimately, the case underscores a timeless truth. Justice requires vigilance, the collective strength of a community, and a justice system willing to look beyond the obvious and persist through uncertainty. Though Alexandra's journey ended far too early, the pursuit of justice in her name ensured that her story would not fade into silence. In remembering her, we remember not only a tragedy but a light that once shone and still does in the hearts of many.